What's going on, guys? Dots here, and today I'm bringing you an updated user interface and settings guide for World of Warcraft Dragonflight patch 10.2. Whenever I get into an MMO, or in this case, get back into an MMO, BlizzCon and War Within got me hyped, I like to make my user interface and settings guide as my first guide just to showcase what I am using for my UI setup, since setting up my UI is the first thing that I do. So we are going to go over the positions for my WoW UI, the settings that I have for the game itself, as well as the add-ons and their settings. But before we get into today's guide, I do just want to thank today's sponsor, eWin Racing. I have used eWin Racing's products now for about 4 years, and so I've put in hundreds and hundreds of hours in their desk chairs. I had their original champion chair for a solid 3.5 years, but when they told me, hey, we have an upgraded version of the chair that you're using, I, of course, wanted to try it. So I've been using this new version for a couple of months, and it is definitely a big step up over the previous one. For example, like the headrest here is magnetic, so you don't have like all the buckles and straps hanging off your chair. It just sticks right to it, and you can adjust it however you want. You can ascend and descend the chair. You could rock on the chair. You could obviously adjust the tilt of the back if you want to. But to me, one of the biggest things that stood out was the quality of the leather on the chair compared to the older version. So if you look, I mean, I think the camera picks it up really well. You can tell this is a big step up. And my favorite thing is the fact that this is perforated. I know me personally, I get very warm when I game, and so having perforated leather, to me at least, makes a really big difference in keeping me cool. They also do have a built-in lumbar support with this little dial right here. I personally don't use it because I have some issues with my back, so I use the pillow that they sent me instead. But should you want to use the built-in lumbar support, it is there and you can use it. You guys can pick up any of their products. You've used the links in the description below for 30% off. And so there's really never been a better time to hop into one of their chairs or grab one of their desks. So again, link in the description below. Use code DOTS at checkout. All right, guys, now that we are back from the ad break, let's get into this guide and let's showcase the position of the UI itself. And I am getting zapped. Okay, so now that we are back from being electrocuted, this is going to be the positions and setup for my user interface. Now, thankfully, you can copy this to your UI very, very easily by simply going to your layout here, clicking import, and then I will have a text string in the description below that you just have to paste into here, and it will set up your UI to look just like mine. Now, I have used this UI for PvP and PvE on both tank and DPS. You might want to change this if you're a healer. Obviously, healer setups are much different, but for tanking, DPS, and PvP, this UI will work out very, very well for you. So you can, again, just import that right into your setup. Now, other settings that or other positions that I do have kind of relative to that, before we actually get into the add-on settings themselves, the first one and probably the biggest one is going to be BigWigs. So this is how I have my BigWigs kind of centered around my character. So we have the proximity stuff here, emphasized bars here, messages in the middle, text countdown and regular messages, info box right above the party frame. And then the bars are actually going to be right here. This actually ends up being like right to the left of my OmniCD. I have this very character-centric, as you can see, so those are the positions that I do have. So let me hide the BigWigs anchors. And now, speaking of which, that segues me perfectly into OmniCD. So OmniCD, the only thing that you really need to change for these settings, I have no problem going over these real quick, is I just make the position for the arena and the battlegrounds to the, arena and dungeons to the left of the party frame. That's pretty much all you need to do. I can't show it here, unfortunately, to test because it ends up getting all messed up. When you click test here under dungeons, you can see it brings your interrupts up here. I put them right about there because that ends up being right to the left of the Mythic Plus information, and I find that to be a really, really good place for me. So I do put my interrupts there, and it ends up being just to the right of those bars for BigWigs. Now, besides OmniCD, the other add-on that I do have positioned is going to be GladiusEx for when I play Arena. So again, relative to the rest of my UI, this is where it is, right above my target and focus frames. So right here, very easy to see. Again, very character-centric. Now, the only other thing besides GladiusEx is going to be BattleGroundEnemies. So I have the 1 to 15 arenas here, or the 1 to 15 players, excuse me, here, and then the 16 to 40 like this. Again, we'll go over the settings in a bit, but that is where I have it positioned again because my raid frames are here. It ends up being right above the raid frames. Okay, now in terms of the actual settings that I have for my game itself, we'll quickly go over those. I have unchecked sticky targeting, auto dismount and flight, and interact on left click, and enable interact key. Have everything else checked. And then I have loot set to the shift key, but I do auto loot, so this is pretty much, you can ignore this. Uncheck enable interact key and interact with sound cue. All this stuff down here is unchecked. I do have mouse look speed at 1.5. If I put it any higher, I just do it the DPI on my mouse. If it's so much higher, like, I feel like you rotate super duper fast, so I end up turning this all the way down to either like 1, maybe 1.5. And then for camera, I have only horizontal when moving for the camera follow style. Interface, I turned off my name, critters, and companions, and then I have NPC names for all NPCs, and then I do check all of these things here. I do have always show nameplates checked. You always want to show your nameplates for enemy unit nameplates, minions, and minor. I do not like friendly player nameplates. I personally never been my thing, so I have those unchecked. I have flash on aggro loss checked. I use overlapping nameplates. For display, I have unchecked in-game navigation and tutorials. I've just always left those checked, even though I don't really have them pop up anymore. For outline mode, I do quest objective and mouse over. Status text is both, just so it displays both status text on my character portrait here. And then chat bubbles, I do exclude party chat. I don't need to see chat bubbles for my party chat, so I have exclude. Uncheck these for replace player fame portraits and replace my portrait. For the raid frames, we have checked display incoming heals, display power bars, display aggro highlight, class colors, and show debuffs. And then I have display health text as health percentage. The arena frames, that doesn't really matter because, again, I use the add-on for that. Action bars, I just use 2, 3, and 4. Lock action bars and show numbers for cooldowns. I don't need more action bars than this. Combat, I have all this stuff unchecked up here. I do have target of target checked, loss of controller checked, scrolling combat text for self-check. And then I have auto self-cast, focus cast key is none, empowered self-input is hold, spell input is hold and release, spell alert opacity at 65%. Social, the only thing I have checked is restrict calendar invites, online friends, offline friends, and real ID and Battletech friends. Censor messages from no one. And then I do IM style inline for new whispers. I don't want it to constantly create a new window. And then chat timestamps. So otherwise, you can just uncheck everything else. The ping system, I don't actually have a button bound for this yet, but I do enable it in ping sounds and ping show and chat, but I do actually need to like bind a keybind for this still. Key binding specific for my character. I can do a separate key binding video though if people do want to know what I'm using. For general, I do have cinematic subtitles turned on, default quest contrast, keep character centered, camera shake full. You can turn this off if you don't like camera shake. I typically will turn this off in most games, but it's never bothered me in WoW. I just realized that. Cursor size is default. Raid self highlight off. Again, spell opacity 65%. Empowered spell input, hold and release, and interact key icons default. I didn't touch colorblind mode, text to speech. Mounts, I also do not believe I touched either. Graphics, all I did in here, I did actually 2 things in here. Number 1 is I turned the base game quality to 6. And then the second thing I did, the biggest thing that I think will help people is this change right here, the graphics API. Change this if you have any issues with WoW. If your PC just runs a little bit weird while you play WoW, you might be thinking, oh, that does happen to me. My PC does run a little bit weird. My other monitors kind of act a little odd. WoW seems like it like kind of blinks a little bit in loading screens. Change your graphics API to DirectX 11. When I was on DirectX 12, my computer ran like hot garbage whenever I played WoW. But the second I changed it to, and it hadn't even crashed a whole bunch, but once I changed it to DirectX 11, solved 100% of my problems. Highly recommend doing that if WoW is doing any funny business with your computer. And then the only other thing that I did was I capped my max foreground FPS at my highest FPS that I can see on my monitor, which is 144. And then I did max background FPS to 60, since when I dumped it all the way down to 30, I thought it looked like garbage. Audio, I turned it down to 20%. I feel like WoW, for some reason, is really loud as a game, so I turned it down to 20%. Unchecked music, so I usually listen to music. Sound effects, and I unchecked enable pet sounds. I unchecked error speech. I unchecked sound and background, and then I believe the rest of this is pretty much default. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be it for the actual game settings. So now let's hop into our add-ons. Thankfully, most of my add-ons are plug and play, so you're not going to really have to worry about too much in terms of changing things. So the first one that I have is going to be Bagnon. Now, I don't know if by the time I upload this will be any different, but the default Bagnon, basically, if you don't know what this is, it just puts your bags into one window. Now, you might be wondering, well, Dots, why do you want to do that? Because you can do that as default on Blizzard now. Well, it's a little pet peeve that I have, but when you use the combine into, like, bag function for Blizzard's UI, you can't, as far as I know, you can't move it. And, like, I like to be able to, like, move and reposition my bag however I want. So, Bagnon. Plus, you can, like, check other characters. You can search a little bit more. Like, I just find Bagnon to be a better add-on. Now, if you download your add-ons from wherever, I highly recommend at least the one I'm using. I use Bagnon 10.1.14. Any version that I've tried after that doesn't work. I don't know if they fixed it by now. Again, by the time you're watching this video, maybe it'll be fixed. But if you use the latest version of Bagnon and it's not working, I use 10.1.14 and it is very stable on my computer. So you can always just, again, like if you use CurseForge, that's what I use. You can just do install settings, ignore, and it'll never offer to update Bagnon, which is what I am doing personally. Now, besides Bagnon, we also do, as we showcased before, I also, for Bagnon, I uncheck Guild Bank and Void Sword since it hides settings for those that you need. I use BattleGroundEnemies. I just find it very useful for if I ever do rated Battlegrounds and just to see, like, the enemies in Battlegrounds themselves. Again, I do find it personally very useful. I did change a bunch of stuff for this because I think it shows an unnecessary amount of information. So basically what I did was I went to the 1 to 15. I don't have it enabled for arena. I turned it off. I went to 1 to 15. I turned the mainframe settings, the scale to 0.9. And then I actually clicked button. Okay. And then that's when you can set your width, your height, your vertical grow direction, spacing, and columns. So for the 1 to 15, I did 220 by 28. And then one column with a vertical spacing of 3. For 16 to 40, I have it scaled to 0.85. Again, this one was where was this one? This one was 0.9. This one I made 0.85. Button, again, 220, 22. Downwards, vertical spacing 1, columns 2, horizontal spacing 25, vertical grow direction rightwards is what I did for 16 to 40. And then once you come down here, you actually can open up the module settings. Now, I think I have these the same for both, but we'll just run through them just in case. I'll just go over the things I have checked. I have class checked. I have health bar checked. Highest priority aura checked. Name checked. Objective and respawn timer checked. Power bar. We have role specialization. Target icon. Target indicator numeric. Target indicator symbolic. And the trinket. For 16 to 40, I think I pretty much kept it the same. Again, let's just start from the top since this is being weird. Class, health bar, highest priority aura again, no level, name, objective again, and respawn timer. No power bar this time. Roles, spec, target icons, again, the numeric, the symbolic, and the trinket. But again, for the 16 to 40, I think I just turned off the power bar because, again, with that many people, it's not anything I'm paying attention to literally at all. So, kept it pretty simple. I also unchecked it for allies. Don't care about it. I only care about it for the enemies. The other add-ons that we are rocking is going to be BigDebuffs. BigDebuffs is the bomb diggity. So basically what BigDebuffs does is whenever you have a sort of status effect on your character, like you're CC'd or you're, have a big offensive or defensive cooldown, it'll show as like a little icon on your frame. So for example, if I use wings here, it'll show my wings activity timer here on my portrait. I find this very useful for especially if people are CC'd or in arena to know if someone pops an offensive cooldown or defensive cooldown, because it puts it right on the player portrait and it makes it really, really easy to track. It's an add-on I've used for years and I absolutely swear by it. We also have, again, BigWigs. We did go over BigWigs earlier for the positions. I changed nothing about the settings, just simply the positions. So again, you could just right click this thing here, show moving anchors, move them to where you want, hide moving anchors, and you're good to go. Besides BigWigs, we have details. Details, you just, whenever you install details, you'll basically kind of go through like a wizard, and you will just basically pick all of your settings when you know, as you go through it. I pretty much kept most of my stuff, I think, pretty standard, but as you go through them, just kind of updated however you want. I think the only thing that I changed was that I had it show like percentage of damage, so you know like what percentage of the group's damage you're dealing, but otherwise I didn't change anything else. And again, you will have the option to enable that going through the wizard, so I'm not going to go through it here because again, it's pretty self-explanatory. Gather Mate 2 is what I use for tracking my gathering. So I do have herbalism on this character. Granted, I have not gathered yet, but I do have herbalism on this character. And you can basically, this will track previous positions that you have gathered before, so it makes it easy to kind of like make like a little route for yourself whenever you are going to gather, so you know where things are. I also have HandyNotes, which puts little handy notes on your map should you need them. If you go here to the map filter, it shows a whole bunch of stuff here, but the main reason I use it is to enable the add-on for the dragon glyphs. Obviously very useful to be able to find out where the glyphs are so that you can upgrade your dragon riding mount. I still have to go get these ones up here, but I have the rest of them pretty much everywhere else. But yeah, we have HandyNotes and we have HandyNotes dragon glyphs. So very, very good add-on for your map to give you a little bit more stuff. I was using health bar color at one point just to make the health bars of my user interface, or excuse me, of like my portraits, that's the word I was looking for, the color of my class, but I've stopped using that. KUI is the one that I have. It's my nameplate add-on. It's the one that has the most configuration, so we'll go over that last. LittleWigs, I also recommend downloading. It fits right in with BigWigs, and it just works with dungeons, basically. So work that into BigWigs. OmniCD, we went over that earlier. Again, it's mostly just positioning. I didn't really change that much else. I think... No way did my game just crash. Funnily enough, that is the first WoW crash I've had, I think, since I've come back. And ironically enough, the last time my game like crashed like that was the last time that I made a user interface guide back in December of 2022. So that is extremely funny. So where was I? OmniCD. So OmniCD also, I didn't really change very much. Again, all I really have it enabled for is arena, dungeons, and that's it. All I have it on for. I have it turned off pretty much everywhere else. And again, I showed you guys any relevant settings earlier in the video. Besides that, OmniCD, I have Postal. Allows me to just basically open all my mail in one click, and then it automatically deletes everything. Raider.io, I use that for the Raider.io score, so you can see, you know, how many... how much the progress people are in raids, their overall Mythic Plus score, so that you can basically be more educated about whether or not you should invite someone to a group to run your dungeon. I have RC Loot Council. This is only installed because my current raid guild requires it to do the loot. This basically enables master loot for your guild. So good thing, obviously, to have, but if you need it, your guild leader will tell you if you need this, otherwise you don't need it. I have Simulationcraft. So basically, this is used to sim your character to decide if a gear piece is an upgrade or not. So you do /simc, and you will get this big ol' code. You just copy that, and then on your internet browser, you just want to go and open raidbots.com/simbot/top gear, and then paste your code into the load from SimC add-on, and then you run it, and you will pretty much be good to go. And you can basically test to see if a gear piece would actually be an upgrade or not, and if you should do it. So very, very helpful to make decisions for your gearing process. And then obviously we have the granddaddy Weakauras. I actually don't use that many Weakauras, to be honest. I only use 3. One that I use is Final Verdict. It's specific for the Rep Paladin. Basically, it's whenever I get a proc that lets me use Hammer of Wrath at any time. I like to have like these little sort of indicators around my character. So I just did this one up here. I also use the Ultimate Mouse Cursor one. This is the one that puts the little circle around my mouse. This is mainly just due to the fact that I lose my mouse all the time playing WoW. And especially when you right-click, this will show you where your mouse cursor was previously. So when you release, you're like, oh God, where's my mouse going to be? You know exactly where it is. So that's a real big one. And then I also just use, of course, DF Dungeons to just give me all the Weakauras that I need for the dungeons in Dragonflight. You can get all of these off of wago.io if you need them. So I think the last add-on that we have is going to be KuiNameplates. So in terms of the settings that we have here, for the fade rules, we have non-target alpha of 0.7, conditional alpha of 0.3, animation speed of 0.3. For the, I think the only thing I really changed was the frame sizes. So we have width of 126, height of 15, personal width 128, personal height 15, target size 129, 16, minus size 80, 14, 10 padding width, 20 padding height, 3 shadow size, 8 target glow size, 8 threat glow size, 3 power bar height, 1 global scale. Auras, I do have shown purge, show on personal frames, timer threshold 60, sorting time remaining, and then you can see all these other numbers down here should you want to copy them. Threat, I do enable tank mode and threat glow. I actually do use these nameplates when I tank as well. I find them to be very good. Class power, I have all this stuff checked. Boss mods, I have enabled boss mod communication, allow boss mods to control nameplate visibility, icon size 32, vertical offset 35, horizontal offset 0, and then I don't have anything touched with CVARs. But guys, I do think on that note, that is going to be it for me today for my updated user interface and settings guide. Hopefully you guys did find it helpful, and if you did, I would appreciate if you left a like on the video. Any questions about my UI for any reason, feel free to leave a comment below and subscribe for more MMO content. I've been debating whether or not I want to bring back my WoW Beginner Guide series that I did for Shadowlands that I did for early Dragonflight. So if that's something you guys want to see, let me know and maybe I will bring it back. But that's going to be it for me today. Thank you so much for stopping by. I do very much appreciate it. As always, I'm Dots Gaming, and I'll see you all in the next one.